Hi, welcome to Mamas and Manny's. I'm your host, Trina. This is a short form podcast for mamas that are looking for a quick burst of me time. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button and share this with another mama that is looking for a quick burst of me time. As always, at the beginning of the episode, we're going to start with the motivational quote or mantra. This week's mantra is going to tie well into our mama time. It says, I am at peace with my past failures and mistakes. And the only reason why I say it's going to tie well, if you have graduated from anywhere in your life, I know when I was in school, you may have taken that test, not done so well on that test. That's the past. Even like when you're first starting a job, I still think that's still like a graduation when you're done with your orientation period. That's, in the past. So think about it. I am at peace with my past failures and mistakes. So take that into consideration when you are thinking about any type of new beginning and getting over that first part of the process. But guess what time it is? It's mama time. So this week's mama time is going to be some tips for new grads. It could be college grads. It can also relate to grads from high school or any type of school, master's, PhD, professional school like doctors, lawyers, dentists, anything, any type of school. It's going to be 10 pieces of practical and honest advice for recent college graduates. And I pulled this from ChatGPT just to see what they had to offer as far as great advice to give to someone that is finishing school. So the first one is you don't have to have it all figured out. It is normal to feel overwhelmed because you are starting a new process. I would say from any school, if you are finishing up, you were so used to going to school, you had to study 5 to 7 days a week for several hours. That was your process. You got up, went to class, studied, took a test, did it all over again. But just think about it. Now you have to think about, hopefully a few months before with your school, you were thinking about steps to continue on to the next thing, being a job and things like that. The second one is start building financial habits early. And I think this is a really good one. Is saying start out on a budget. And just before I continue with what ChatGPT said, a lot of times, I think in professional schools, they do teach you about budgeting, if I'm not mistaken. I think one of my friends that's a dentist or like a pharmacist, I think they said they do teach you about budgeting because you'll be making more money probably than you've ever made in your life. But I don't know how much that goes into details, but that's for a professional school. I know for the most part, undergrad, they don't teach you about financial literacy. But nowadays it's so easy, or it's easily accessible to get financial literacy. You have the Budgetnista, you have Earn Your Leisure. If you listen to Wall Street Trapper, they at least give you basic information. I think the Budgetnista is a great start, especially if you're just starting out. She gives you a basic budget, what you should be saving for. She makes you think about, do you really need something? Do you want it? Or is it a necessity? So she really breaks that down. And then she goes step by step in what you should be doing next. After you've saved your money, created your budget, what should you do next? Savings account, so forth. So I think she's a great tool, as well as Wall Street Trapper, when you're starting to get into saving into the market, as well as Earn Your Leisure. They go over just a wide array of things from real estate, stock market, businesses, everything you need to be successful financially. And one tip that they gave in ChatGPT, especially when you're younger, if you're just graduating school, the younger the better. If you're graduating undergrad or even graduating high school, you can start off with like $10 a week. That's only $40 a month. Or you can start off with like $10 a month if you're just starting out. The beauty of compound interest will take you a long way. And even if you're watching this and you have kids that are in high school, I would say once they start working, go ahead and have them put aside $10 a week. Then that way you can increase it each month or you can increase it each year. Next on the list is your first job isn't your forever job. I think this is great advice because it used to be when older adults, they would work the same job, sometimes even out of high school for 40 years, retire, live their life. It's not like that anymore. Sometimes people are working 1 and 2 jobs a year, especially with the pandemic. It really changed that. I forgot what they call the people that were job hopping, but nowadays you can work more than one job throughout your life. And sometimes, like I said, people are working more than one job, multiple jobs a year. Like you start one job and finish it. Just depends on you, depends on your industry that you're in. Some industries are small. Like if you work somewhere where you're working at a hospital or you're working in a field where it's not that many people in the field, it's going to get around that you are job hopping. Now, if you are a great employee, that's good because everybody gonna be like, oh, okay, I remember Trina. She was a great employee. She did this, that, this, and the other. She'll be a great addition to your team. Now, if you're a little trifling and you don't like working and you don't have great work ethic, that's also going to get around. So just think about that. But the most important thing is to remember that your first job is not your forever job. Next is relationships matter more than resumes. So stay connected. Social media has made this way easier. Stay connected with classmates. If you are in high school, you want to communicate with your friends, but a healthy social media communication. That could just be saying, hey, can I follow you on social media? You don't necessarily have to message people or, just keeping that person in your social media feed. Once you get older, especially if you're in like college, again, remembering that person's name. I am the type of person that loves to get a person's name. I like to call people by their first name. It makes people feel special because each unique person is special. So I love calling people by their name and making sure at least I remember something about them. Like, okay, this person wears glasses. And that could be something as simple as that, because if you wear glasses, that's something you guys have in common. Or you may ask that person, oh, I always love the glasses you wear. Where do you get your glasses from? How do you clean your glasses? Whatever it may be, especially if you're like an introvert, remembering small things like that really help you, A, to remember the person, but B, also to start a conversation when you come back to them. Next is ask for help and ask questions. I think this is great for everyone. That's also one thing I think that is not well taught at school is asking questions. Of course, your professor may always say, does anyone have questions? Sometimes in school, if you haven't studied in advance or you're not as familiar with the material that's being presented to you in class, you may not know what questions to ask. So on your first job or just in life in general, ask questions. If you see someone that's doing something you like if we go back a few more tips, when we talked about financial literacy, if you see someone and you can tell, not necessarily by the outside things, but even just the way they talk, or they may say, oh, I have a rental home or just something like that. Ask them, hey, how did you get into that? Is this a house that was in your family? Or is this a house you used to live in and you decided to rent it out when you bought your next house? So asking questions, also asking questions. Maybe if you have that ability to speak with your manager or your supervisor, how did you start out in this career field to work your way up as a manager or a supervisor? Just other things, just in general. So keep that in mind. Any question that you may have, ask. Guess who's also a great a great person to ask questions to? Your mom or your dad, or even if you have older siblings. Just think about that. Sometimes, when you're younger, you don't know what questions to really ask older people in your family. But I think when you get a little bit older, then you start looking at people and be like, you know, how do they do this? How do they do that? So asking questions is always a good thing. Next, be okay with being the newbie. Humility is always a great trait to have. So you're going to be new several times in your life. Just like you're a new grad, you're going to think about when you first started high school, you were a freshman. Same thing with your job, you're going to be a new hire. So get comfortable with that. Make sure you are showing humility. Again, asking questions, listening to what people are telling you, the advice that's being given, and also taking that advice with a grain of salt, making sure that it makes sense to you. Next is keep learning. Your degree is not the end of your education. This is excellent. This is the same thing about asking questions, finding out more information. How can you better yourself? What am I missing on a financial standpoint? What can I add to my portfolio, to my assets? So just remember that education does not stop. Next is invest in your health and self-worth. I think this is good. This is something, again, that is not talked about in schools, or even if you go to like churches sometimes, it's not really even talked about then. You want to make sure you invest in yourself. Now, I will say, when I went back to med tech school, my teacher used to tell us this. She would say, because Fridays we only did a half a day. I think we had like one class or maybe two short classes. She would say, take some time out, at least on Friday afternoon. Don't study, don't do anything. Find something you like fun to do. If that's watching a movie. I remember I had one classmate, he used to like to watch The Voice. So that was his thing. Whatever night The Voice came on, he would watch that. No studying. So think of something that is going to make you happy, whether that's food, but keep things in moderation. Because that's another thing. Now that you're graduating, you have to cook for your own self if you haven't already been doing that. So keep that in mind, making sure you're coming up with a good exercise schedule, a good sleep schedule, just a good schedule to take care of yourself. Keep that very upfront in things that you're doing. So these are just some great tips. Again, the tips are really quickly. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Start building financial habits early. Your first job isn't your forever job. Relationships matter more than resumes. Ask for help and ask questions. Be okay with being the newbie. And keep learning. And also invest in your health and self-worth. I think these are some great tips. If you have new grads in your life, no matter where they're graduating from, share these tips with them, share this episode with them, and also share this, as always, with another mama. That way, if she has kids, nieces, nephews that are graduating, she can share these tips with them as well. So leave feedback if you have some more tips you would like to share with new grads. As always, remember to follow us on social media, all platforms at Mommas and Mannies. Check out our YouTube channel. That way you'll see what new episodes. You can check out some of our old episodes. And as always, remember that me time is essential and it is never selfish. Have a great week, mamas.